How will today's Excel tip enhance your data analysis? Join us in this detailed tutorial from our expert trainer who walks you through each step. For an even more hands-on experience, you can download the course files linked below and follow along. Let's get started.
So without further ado, let me introduce you to today's instructor, Dave Casito. Dave has 2 master's degrees, instructional technologies and organizational psychology. He's trained countless leaders face-to-face, but also many others with his online courses. He's created over 25 different courses for Simon Says It now, and these cover a variety of different products. Adobe, Microsoft has actually got more in the pipeline, so plenty more to see from Dave. I'll pass it over to you now, Dave.
Wonderful. And thank you, Ben. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. So happy to bring us into this world of Excel productivity. And we're going to see, productivity can mean really a lot of things to a lot of people. And we're going to focus on really just the most essential things to make you more efficient, more creative, more productive with your workday. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And we're going to see, hopefully you've got the files all locked and loaded and ready to go. On the bottom, I have all of these tabs down below. And by the way, you'll see me kind of marking up the screen all throughout. We have all these tabs to kind of set us up for our exercises all throughout. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is one of my favorite tools, and this is something called tables. Sort of a generic name that really does quite a bit, right? So tables is really just sort of like an automated way to do a number of different things. One thing is formatting. Formatting is essentially the look and feel of your data set, right? So you want it to look more presentable, more professional, more pretty, really. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. We're going to talk about formulas. We're going to talk about filters. We're going to talk about freeze panes and a few other essentials. And you're going to see this all happens within tables. Now, as you start to progress more and more with Excel and more with tables, like even with pivot tables or even incorporating them into more advanced formulas, you're going to see that tables are really essential because they're what we call dynamic. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just convert this into a table, because right now you can see it's not very pretty. It's not very presentable, and it is not very professional looking, right? We want to make it more readable. So how do I convert this to a table? Very simply, just click anywhere inside the data. And you're going to notice here is right here in the middle of my home tab is this format as table. So when I click on that, you're going to see I can choose from any variety of colors. Doesn't matter which one. I'll choose this nice blue color. And notice it identifies with little marching ants what my data is going to be. And very simply, I'm going to click OK. But you'll see here, I'll zoom in a little bit. You can see here, it's got the whole data range. And also it says my table has headers, which is going to be kind of important in a second. When I click OK and I click away, you're going to see just like that, a very much different looking table. Let's go ahead and click on this one now and do the same thing a little faster. Let's do this orange color. I click OK, and then boom, just like that, I've made it look like this. Okay, one more time. Let's go do format as table. And then I'll just choose one of these other ones, right? A lot of different colors you can choose from. Click away, and now I'm good to go. Now, let's just say, for example, I don't like this anymore. My client doesn't like it. My boss is like, what are you doing? What is this craziness, right? So very simply, all I have to do is click back onto the table. And you're going to notice now I have a new tab that didn't exist before called Table Design. This is known as a contextual tab. Now, when I click away, notice that contextual tab disappears. I click back. Now, you're going to see here's Table Design. Now, what I want to do here is explore some of these options that I have for my table design. So the first thing you're going to notice here is on the right-hand side, I can now convert this to a whole different look and feel, right? So I'll go ahead and just choose maybe something monochromatic. I go there, and you'll notice as I hover my mouse over it, it's giving me a nice little preview of whatever that change is going to be. So I'll go ahead and choose this one. So you can see how easy it is to not only create the table, but also to modify the table, to modify this look and feel. Okay, so this is known as a table style. Let's go ahead now and go next level with our modifying of our formatting. To the left of these table styles, you're going to see there's this whole grouping of table style options. Now, we will see that there's a bunch of checkboxes. And as we know, checkboxes are essentially yes or no, right? So I'm going to start off with this one here called banded rows. I click back on this top table, and then I'm going to uncheck banded rows. just to show you what that means. So maybe you don't want to have these alternating colors. That's what banded rows are. Let's go ahead and turn on banded columns, and maybe you prefer that. So think about how efficient that is, right? The fact that I don't have to highlight everything, I don't have to go from row to row or column to column to implement those changes. That is absolutely extraordinary. I'm going to go ahead and turn off banded columns, go back to banded rows. And now let's go to this other section where we have first column and last column. So that's kind of shorthand for saying, do you want them to look like headings? Are they important? Do you want them to stand out? So again, just one quick click, I say, look at that, first column, love that. Let's go here to this one. First column, love that. Let's go to this one, and I'll say first column, and then notice how they all get bold. Now, one thing you might notice is also these guys change on the right-hand side, right? So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one, and notice how first column now looks like this, right? And now if I uncheck it, you're going to see how that goes away. So not only does it change in the data set, but it also changes in my preview, right? So really, really slick. So let's go ahead now. I'll use the same one, and I'm going to go over here to last column, and notice how that makes that stand out. Again, no highlighting, no nothing. I don't have to like, what colors do I want to choose? Anything like that. You can see how nice and easy it is inside of this table design tab. Now, some of you who are trying to practice, you want to make sure that you are in fact inside the table in order to see the table design tab. Just a reminder, if you click away, you will not see these options here. You will not see that contextual tab until you do what? You click back on the table. Okay, very good. Now, let's go ahead and explore, just on a very light version, the total row option here. So total is just a very generic way of saying, I would like to do some type of calculation, okay? Some type of total. Doesn't necessarily have to be summing, doesn't necessarily have to be an average. It's any bits of choices you can have there. So for the next thing I'm going to do, moving outside of working with my formatting, is I'm now going to do a total row. So watch as I do this now. I simply click on total row and keep your eye on row 6, right? Without any funny business, you're going to see, as soon as I click on total row, look at that. A new row now appears. I'll go and do the same thing for this one. Total row, look at that. A new row that says the word total. That's great. Didn't even have to type that out. Certainly, I can override this with my own words, no problem. But my goal here is to sum this up. So you're going to see that there is, in fact, now this drop-down menu. And with this drop-down menu comes with a whole bunch of different types of calculations. Without me having to do any formula at all, I can now implement the sum. I do that, and then just like that, it's now summed up, right? No formulas, no syntax, no typing, nothing. With tables, it all becomes very automatic, as I said earlier, right? Go ahead and do this one for count. So easy that is. Let's go and do another one. Let's do this one for average. Love that. How about another one, maybe for max? You can see that's going to show me the biggest of all these numbers. How slick is that? Okay, now for this one, I'm just going to do a sum across the board. So I'm just going to go and click on the drop down. I'm going to choose sum. Okay, and now what I'm going to do for this case is I'm going to drag this sum that I just created over to the right-hand side using something called autofill, right? So autofill is going to allow me to autofill this formula all the way over to the rest. So it's respective and relative to the rest of these. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to go ahead and grab this guy right there. It's my autofill handle. Just wait for it as I move my mouse over it. I'm going to get this little crosshair and just simply click and drag. It's just like that, right? So watch as I do this one really, really fast. I'm going to go ahead and just apply, sum, autofill, and we're done. See how nice and easy that is? And we've just now implemented our formulas, right? So you can see how total row is essential. So let's go ahead now. I'm going to jump over to a larger data set. And you can see, whoa, this looks very intimidating because of the fact it's just really unformatted. You know, so if it was formatted, it would be a lot easier to read, right? It would be a lot easier for me to kind of decipher and navigate through and everything. So I'm going to do a format as a table again, but this time I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut. Okay, and this is going to be our first keyboard shortcut of the day. The keyboard shortcut is incredibly easy to remember. It's just Control plus the letter, wait for it, T. T is in table. Now, if I don't care about what color it is or anything like that, I'm just going to do Control T just to establish the table. Watch how easy it is. Control plus T. Now it's going to go say create table. I click OK, and now it's a table. Just like that. It's absolutely amazing. They really want you to work with tables, right? So that's why they make it so easy and accessible. So just like that, Control T, and now this is a much nicer table, but certainly I can improve upon this. So I don't really want this to be banded rows. I prefer this to be banded columns. So I'm going to uncheck that and then go banded columns. And then for me personally, that feels a lot easier to read, right? So I'm going to keep it just like that, okay? Now I'm going to come down to the bottom of my page here to show you that there's no total row at all. Now I'm going to go to the bottom of the table. I'm going to throw you another keyboard shortcut. It's just Control and then the down arrow takes you way down to the bottom of your data set. You see that? That takes me to the last one. And guess what? Control up arrow takes me to the top. Control down arrow takes me to the bottom once again. Okay, so those are two more keyboard shortcuts. Let's go ahead. I want to add in this total row here. Okay, now I don't have to be at the bottom to do that. I just wanted you to see that we do not have a total row currently. So very simply, I'm going to say total row. That comes up and you're going to see, here we go. Here's my total row. And now when I click on this little drop down, I'm going to say sum again. Okay, we're going to see we have a bit of a problem. Now, some of you may have seen this before. This hashtag looks very, very scary, but all it means is that there's not enough room in this column. It's not wide enough to show this very large number here, right? You see that? But watch what happens now when I click and drag to go across with my autofill. I'm going to have pretty much the same problem. Okay, so now what I want to do is make this fit so it works there, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go back up to the top again using my Control plus the up arrow. And now I'm going to just simply highlight all of the columns that are essentially problems, right? Because if you recall, the problem is the fact that the column's not wide enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything going from column C all the way to column N. And notice I'm like touching the top of the column. I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm literally clicking and dragging on the letters. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in between the two letters. Notice how I have this little double-sided arrow. And I'm going to now double click to auto fit the column width. So watch this. I'm going to go ahead and double click. And now if I come down again, you're going to see, right? There it is. Auto fit. I can see everything perfectly now. Okay. So from beginning to end, this is looking like a pretty nice data set. Very impressive, easy to read. Okay. So now we've kind of come full circle with a larger data set for formatting and also doing some formulas. But then we learned a few other things of how to navigate throughout a large data set using our up and down control arrows, as well as using autofit to be able to autofit across the board. Now let's go ahead and go on to our next component within tables, which is filters. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about filters in a non-table environment, but you're going to see that tables allow us to do filtering without having to even apply a filter. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, if I go back over here to table design, right, you're going to see up on top here, this filter button option right there. And automatically it's there. If I don't want it, I can easily turn that off if you don't like filters. So what do filters do? It allows us to control what we want to see and what we don't want to see based off of certain conditions. So if I don't want to see, only, stores 100 through 120, I can go ahead and just check those off. Whatever it is, you can filter those out. Now they don't get deleted, they just get filtered out temporarily. Very easy, I can bring it back, right? So let's just go ahead and do a quick one. I'm going to click on this little filter button here, and you're going to see I have every single store available. I didn't do that, Excel did that, right? It gathered every single one of these stores. So what I want to say is, hey, listen, I do not want everything except for 100, 101, and 103, right? So I'm going to go ahead and choose these. And now when I click OK, now you're going to notice that, yes, these all other ones disappeared. And also, look how it did the math for me, right? It did what we call a subtotal on there. Let's go ahead and add on two more stores. Let's go 102 and then 104. And now notice how that number changed. So Excel is constantly paying attention And with that subtotal, it's allowing it to then recalibrate and recalculate accordingly, right? So really, really nice. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead now and remove that filter, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little drop down, say clear filter, and now we're back, right? So the data doesn't disappear. It just kind of gets kind of relegated to the side, takes a little snack break, and then comes right back whenever you need it. Now let's go ahead and do a different kind of filter. Let's go ahead and do a number filter where I have a very, very specific condition that I want to apply. Okay, so if I now go over to here to my drop down, let's just say for January, okay, and my sales director says, hey, Dave, we'd really like to see what stores were like the biggest earners, for January, right? And I want to know everybody who made over $20,000 for that month, right? Or maybe I want to say, show me the top 20% of all of our earners for that month, right? Or maybe the bottom or the highest average, anything like that. Remember, what a filter is, it's allowing us to set a condition and only show those variables based on that condition. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go over here to the drop down. And this time, I'm not going to choose these, right? Because that could be very tedious. I'm going to go over to here to the number filter choice. And you're going to see that there's quite a bit I can choose from here, right? Equals, does not equal, greater than, less than, right? Between. Here's also my top X%. Here's my above average, all these really great things. I'm just going to very simply now just say greater than, and then is greater than what? I'll just say 20,000. Go ahead and click OK. And now just for January, I'm now able to see all my options here, all my stores that are over 20,000. Okay. Now you'll also notice that I now have this little filter button here. Notice these do not have the filter button. It's going to be really important if you are inheriting somebody else's stuff and you're like, why are things not acting the way they're supposed to, right? This is weird. I feel like something's missing. Oh, because this is in fact filtered, right? So then you know that that's filtered. It's also important to know that you can have more than one filter on any given one. So if I wanted to filter out my stores and do my 20,000, I can do that as well. Now, a nice little bonus is that within the filter button, not only do you have options to do your filtering and choose your numbers and choose your conditions, but you can also do what we call sorting, right? So I might want to look at this and say, hey, listen, who are my highest earners all the way down to my lowest earners? And I want to do it in that order. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the drop down and then just say sort largest to smallest. And now you can see it's taken all the highest numbers, then gone down to the lowest numbers. Okay, you see that? So you kind of get a 2-for-1 with this little button here, right? Really, really nice. I like that. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and clear out the filter. Once again, go ahead and say clear out filter. And now I'm going to go back to sorting my store numbers from smallest to largest. And now we're back to where we were before. Okay, so really, really powerful, really good stuff here. Now, I'm going to go over here to this third one here, this third green one. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at other kind of next level variables and tools we can use within tables. And namely, we're going to make something called structured reference and also slicers. Okay, so really fancy, unusual terms. So I'm going to make this into a table right now using my keyboard shortcut of Control-T. There it is, right? No mess right there. That's fantastic. I'm going to keep this look and feel. And now, instead of doing filters in this little drop-down way, I'm going to do something called slicers, right? A slicer. Okay, so slicer is just more of a kind of an interactive way of filtering, right? It's pretty much the same thing, right? So a slicer and a filter are the same thing, but it's a little more interactive. And some people say it's like, hey, it's a little more visual, right? It's a little more kind of gamified, right? I mean, it's kind of cool the way that we can do this. And it also makes it so when you're working with other people, the filters are more accessible. So let me go ahead and give you a demonstration of this. So I'm going to go back to my table design, and I'm going to jump over here to the left-hand side where we have this insert slicer, right? You all see that there? So I'm going to say insert slicer right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and see these choices of all my column headings, and it's going to ask us, what would you like to slice on? What would you like to filter on? Well, I would like to only see the choices for the rep and also the region, right? So I choose that, rep and region. I click OK. And now these little buttons appear, right? So really cool. Now, right away, I can start saying, hey, listen, I only want to see Daniels. Great. Show me Daniels. I only want to see Franklin. Oh, that's great. I only want to see Patterson. Fantastic. That's great. And right here on top of there, I also have the ability to clear out the filter to bring everybody back in a much faster way, right? You see that? There is my clear filter. Let's go ahead and just say only ones in the US. That's great. Only ones internationally, only ones Eurozone. Notice how fast and easy and efficient that is, right? To be able to do that. Now, to the left of where we have the clear filter is this little multi-select. So I'm going to go ahead and choose multi-select for both of these. Now it's going to allow me to actually choose more than one. So I want to do Eurozone and international. It shows them both. And I want to choose, let's just say, Blackwell, Franklin, and Lloyd. And now I can see them all just like that, right? Really, really slick, right? So very cool. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to what we call structured references, okay? So let's go ahead and now move on to the last part of this is going to be a structured reference, okay? So a structured reference is another type of formula that I can do, right? So let me just show you here. So number one, I'm now going to extend out this table in a really, really easy way, right? Because notice this little guy right there, I don't know if you can see that, but this is telling me the end of the table. When I click over here and I just type out the word commission, right? And I just hit enter, I want you to notice how that guy automatically expands. See that? If I were to even come down below here, this will automatically expand. Okay, I'll just type out Simon Says It. Okay, you can see there that is, and notice how it automatically expands, right? So that's the dynamic part I was talking about. It's always constantly growing as you sort of attach to it. Okay, so very nice thing to know about that. It takes the formatting, it takes everything, all the identity of the table as well, just by simply adding to the table. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a formula that's going to multiply this times this, okay? So earlier we talked about formulas using that total thing on the bottom, right? We're not going to do it that way. This time we're going to use something called a structured reference. So it sounds really fancy, but all it is us just multiplying these two like you normally would. So I'm going to do equal sign, okay? And then I'm going to click on this where it says 30%. It looks like a lot just happened, but all I did was click on it. Multiplied is just asterisks. Then I click on this one. It looks like a lot just happened. All it's taking is the column heading. And then watch what happens when I hit enter. Just like that, it then spilled down to the rest of them. Isn't that amazing? Tables is just full of rewards like that, okay? So you can see it just added everything up. Absolutely amazing, right? So for those of you who are more familiar with formulas, this is known as an array formula, right? But we don't have to know what that means because we know that it does it automatically for us. Where in the past, before tables, we had to do another kind of array formula to be able to do that. Now we don't have to, okay? Very good. Now let's go ahead and go to this orange tab here. And this time we're going to just do, without using tables, sorting and filtering, right? So once again, I might want to do a filter on this or a sort on this, right? Without using tables. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to sort my departments, right, in alphabetical order. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in my home tab, but I'm going to come way over here to this little section, kind of hiding. It says A to Z right there. And then very simply, I'm going to say A to Z. Now with sorting in this case, it's very important we tell Excel what we want to sort by being in the column. I don't have to highlight the whole column. All I have to do is just simply click anywhere inside the column. I'm going to go here to A to Z. I'm going to say sort A to Z. Notice how it sorts all of my department in alphabetical order and all of its respective data comes with it. Let's go ahead and do region. A to Z. Nice. That comes with it. How about earnings? All right, click there. Sort largest to smallest. All right, so you can see how easy that is. Not a whole lot going on there. Just as long as you click in the right place and you know where to go right here within the home tab. And now let's go ahead and do a little bit more of an advanced type of sort, because sometimes you want to do what we call grouping, aggregating our data, because you want to have kind of a multi-level sort, right? So let's just say my CFO comes over and says, hey, Dave, we'd really like to take a look at department by department and all of their earnings within each department, right? So in other words, when I go to human resources, I want to see everybody's salary, smallest to largest. And then we go to marketing, I want to see, again, the same thing grouped together individually. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go back to my sort and filter. I'm just going to choose custom sort. In this case, it doesn't matter where I click, right? As long as I'm inside the data set someplace, but it doesn't matter what column I'm in. So I'm going to say custom sort. And now I get this little dialog box. Okay, so this dialog box you're going to see here, I have this, what column do you want to sort by? Well, I want to sort first by department. That's great. And I want it to be in alphabetical order, A to Z, right? So something we've already done before. We don't need anything too fancy here. But what we are going to do is we're going to add on a level. That's where that multi-level part comes in. To add a level, click on my little drop down. I'm going to say earning. That's it. So you're going to be grouped within another group. Okay, very good. Now, you'll also notice how this says my data has headers. That's very important. If this was not checked, notice how it only takes the generic columns. You want to make sure that that is always checked there. So it's going to identify the column name. So you know where you're going to be doing it. That's very good. So now I click OK. I'll zoom back out again. And now you can see how beautiful this is. All of accounts going from highest to lowest. And then it goes to administration, highest to lowest. Notice how it kind of starts all over again. Beautiful. Love that. And now that's very neat. I can really kind of tell some stories around this. Okay. So sorting is very, very easy, really straightforward to do. If I want to do some filtering on this, right, I can also filter without using a table. Okay. So I'm going to jump over to another tab so you can see where I can do that. I'm going to go over here to data. And then this time I want you to notice that there's a whole section here for sorting and filtering. It's pretty much the same thing as I showed you in the home, but you may like this a little bit better. Now, if you hover over filter, you're going to see that there is a keyboard shortcut. Let me do that one more time. You can see of Control-Shift-L, right? I really like that. Here's another one that you might want to do, right? It's Control-Shift-L. So let's go ahead and zoom back out, right? I'll do Control-Shift-L, and then notice how these little filter buttons now appear, right? See that? Control-Shift-L also turns off the filter. See that? On, off, on, off. So if you're filtering a lot, that Control-Shift-L is really essential. Let's go ahead and bring that back up there. And now let's just say, for example, I wanted to filter out just by region of East. I click on that. You can see here, I can uncheck, just choose East, click OK. And now it's just East. It's going to show up. Okay, really neat. I'll go ahead and remove that filter. See, boom, it comes all right back. In this case, let's go ahead and do maybe a slightly different one. Let's just say I want to do everybody that has the last name Lee or has the word Lee in it, right? We haven't actually done too much around that, and that's going to be around letters and text. So I click on my little drop down here. You're going to see I now have a text filter. So far, what we've been doing is just choosing from drop downs, but we've also been working with numbers, right, to show like the top whatever percent and all that stuff. But now we're going to go over to here to text filters. And I'm going to say contains, right? Because I want to only show text that contains Lee. I click OK, and you can see now it only shows that text that's there. Okay, so very simply, I can now also get back out of that. So there's a lot of variety we can do. Again, I want to reiterate that earlier when we were working with filters, we had kind of a little gift from Excel. And that gift was essentially a filter within the table, right? But now, sometimes we're not working with tables, and that's okay. We can still do filters. We can still do sorting, okay? And once again, you can see that the sort option is still there. You can see now I'm sorting by region, okay? So really powerful kind of storytelling options. Now, let's go ahead and keep moving on. Let's go here to our first lesson on conditional formatting. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at an example. Under region, notice how all of the words West are formatted to look a little bit different, right? The condition is the fact that it's West. The format is that it is now pink and red, right? So if I change this guy here to West, notice what's going to happen. Automatically turns into pink and red. Let's go ahead and make Annie Phillips no longer West. She's now East. She now loses her formatting. That is conditional formatting. So let's go ahead and do a quick lesson on how we can create that. So I'm going to highlight everything within department, right? All my content down below, because just like with a lot of formatting, you have to select it to affect it, right? So let's use a keyboard shortcut to be able to go and select all the way down. So I'm going to choose accounts, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut of Control Shift and down arrow. I'm adding on the shift here, Control Shift down arrow, and that selects everything all the way down from where I selected. Again, Control Shift down arrow selects everything. And now I'm going to go back to my Home tab, and you're going to see that right over here is this conditional formatting option. I choose that, right? You can see there's this highlight cells rules. And just like how we saw with filtering, greater than, less than, between, etc., even for text right there, dates, duplicate values. This is incredible. We also have this top bottom rules, just like how we saw with our filtering. Top 10%, bottom 10%, whatever it is, or it could be 20%, any of these things here. So we can see how nice we can do. In our case, all we're concerned about is text that contains, because in this case, I only want to show, let's just say, for example, sales in green, right? So text that contains, I'm just going to very simply type out my condition. My condition is sales. To the right-hand side is, guess what? My formatting, condition formatting, right? So now I'm just going to go ahead and just choose green fill. Now just note, if you wanted to go a little bit deeper, you can do a custom format and then choose from their choices. Right now, I'm just going to go ahead and choose from what they have available. You can see it right there. And now it's going to really make it stand out for me in this beautiful, easy to identify way. So I don't have to go hunting for it. Let's go ahead and do earnings this time. Do Control Shift down arrow. Go to say conditional formatting, highlight cells rules. And you can see in this case, I want to see everybody who's making over $100,000, right? I'll just go ahead and type that out. Okay. This time I'm going to go ahead and say yellow, click OK. And now you can see it has them all there. That's beautiful. Okay. But what if you wanted to change part of the conditional formatting? You wanted to change the condition and you wanted to change the format. Very easy. We're now going to kind of go under the hood to now change it. So my boss comes over and says, listen, you know what? People are making a lot more than that now. We actually want to bring it up to 150 and we don't really like this color. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to conditional formatting. But this time I want to manage my rules. I click on that and you're going to see it's going to show me the rule that I now have selected. Okay. And then very soon I'm going to go ahead and edit that rule. So now I'm kind of like in the lab for this, kind of the control center for it. And you will notice here that I have this equal to 100,000, right? Cell value is greater than whatever is equal to 100,000. That's great. And then here's my format. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and make this now 150,000. That's my condition. And my format, now I'm going to go ahead and change the fill color to, let's just say, I don't know, kind of this like light orange color. Okay, great. I can do that. I click OK. And now I'm about to change the condition to 150 and then the color to orange. I click OK. I'm going to hit apply to get a preview of it, right? You can see there's this Diana Stone making 200,000. And then all the rest of these guys are not highlighted because they are not making over 150,000. Beautiful, really nice, really straightforward to be able to really modify and control what those conditions are. Okay, let's go ahead and jump on to something maybe a little bit more kind of advanced, right? Let's go ahead now and I'm going to create kind of different bars for these, right? I'm going to be a little bit more kind of visual with my conditional formatting, right? So let me just go ahead and show you what I mean by that. I'm going to highlight everything within this data set, and I want to communicate visually what's going on with this data set, right? By using what we call bars or even icons or colors in general. So let me just show you what I mean. It's going to be a little more clear in a second. I'm going to highlight all my data, go to conditional formatting, and then we're going to jump over to data bars, color scales, and icon sets. So I can show you what these look like. And again, this is to visually communicate where something lives within our whole data set. So if I now move my mouse over to the right-hand side, I want you to notice now it does something pretty extraordinary. It's creating kind of like a little mini chart of where all the data lives in terms of its curve, right? So the lower ones will have a smaller bar, etc., and then the higher ones will have a bigger one, right? Notice I can choose all the colors I want. That's beautiful. let's try color scales. Instead of actually being those bars based on size, the bars are going to be based on colors, right? So let's go ahead and go to here. And now notice, you're going to see the lowest ones are red and the highest ones are green. You can see I have all those choices here. Okay. And likewise, you have choices within icon sets. So you can see here, I can go ahead and just see all these different choices I have just based on where it falls in the curve. Right? So you can see, and all these are 100% highly customizable. So let's just choose, let's just say this guy here with the green check mark and the red X, right? I'm gonna go ahead and choose that. And maybe I like it, maybe I don't love it, but I do want to maybe kind of customize this a little bit more. I don't really like that X, right? It sounds kind of negative, right? Maybe I want to do something a little bit different. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to my conditional formatting again, go back to my manage rules, and then once again, I'm going to edit this rule. Just like how I edited earlier, right? When I was working with my numbers and such, this rule itself is for icon sets. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the rule. And now we're going to see how we have the icon stylus right there. But what I'd like to do is customize it. So for my red, like I said, look at that. I have all these choices here. I'm actually going to do a red diamond. Okay, that's a lot nicer. And then instead of the yellow exclamation point, maybe go ahead and just do like this little circle with it right there. And then I click OK. I'll hit apply so I can see it. That's beautiful. And now I'm feeling pretty good about that. Okay, so lots of choices. And the same thing would be for the color bars. If you wanted to customize the colors, we would go back to conditional formatting. And then we would see here we have our manage rules. Okay, let's maybe do one more here. And this is the condition where we have blank cells. The condition is blank. And then the format is going to be, I just want them to be in, let's say, bright red. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all the data that's going to be in question. I'm going to go back to conditional formatting. And there are no choices here for blank. So what I have to do is go to a new rule and kind of customize and create it. So I'm going to go ahead and say new rule. And now I'm going to say format only cells that contain what? Blanks. Right? You can see how nice and easy that is, right? Format only cells that contain blanks. It's very, very simple, but really very effective for communicating. So now what is going to be my format? I'll just do this fire engine red. I click OK, and now everything is blank. Can't miss it, right? And if I now delete all of these, you can see they automatically go red. So think about how powerful that simple move could be when you really don't want to miss something, right? You can have it all right there. So now let's go ahead and do some basic functions, right? Functions are essentially like the sum function, the average function, and the count function. So how do I do that? Well, I want to add up these numbers right here, right? So very simply now, I'm going to go over to my home tab and I'm going to choose the sum function. And it is giving me kind of a little hint of what to do here. It says automatically add it up. Your total cells will appear after the selected cells. Well, there's a little hint for you, right? So you have to select it to affect it. So I highlight my data, I go over to here, and then I've now just done a formula. How amazing is that, right? Let's do that one more time. Highlight it, right? Don't have to add anything up, nothing too fancy. If I double click inside of there, you're going to see this has created what we call a function. It's summing B4 through B6. It did all that for me because I highlighted it and I went to auto sum. Absolutely love that. Okay, let's go ahead and do that maybe in a little bit of a faster way. I'm now going to highlight all the numbers, right? I'm going to go to auto sum and then I selected it. Therefore, it affected it on all of these. Let me go ahead and do that one more time. I'm going to highlight all of these because I don't want to have to do them one by one. I'll go over here to auto sum and then it blasts it down. Love that. Let's go ahead and do average and count this time. And I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to do it in a little more manual way by starting off with my equal sign. Notice that every formula starts off with an equal sign. I'm just going to type out AVER, and I'm going to hit the tab key as soon as that appears. And now I want to average up these guys, right? That's it. I'm just highlighting, and then notice how B4 through B6 comes in. Before it did it automatically, now I'm doing a little more manually. I hit enter, and now you can see that's my average. And then instead of having to do that over and over again, one by one, I'm now going to come back to something I showed you earlier, which is my autofill handle, right? So I'm going to go ahead and move my mouse over that, click and drag across, and we're good. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for this one for sum, and then keep going on for this one. And then you can see I can now autofill that. Let's go ahead and do count, C-O-U-N, the tab key. And then this time I'm going to count all of them, right? So I'll highlight all of them, hit the enter key, and now I've just counted up 12, right? Love that. Super, super easy, okay? Now, one really nice, cool trick is not really even a trick at all because it's something that always exists, is looking in the lower right corner. You see where I am over here? Right now, it's totally empty. Watch what happens now when I highlight some numbers. Can you see it all there? It's actually showing me all of these formulas that I didn't even really have to create. They're all there, right? It's showing me the sum of those three, the minimum, the maximum, the count, etc., right? Very easily. You can see it all right there, right? Which I love. Let's go ahead and highlight some more. You can see how it kind of changes as I highlight. If you're not seeing all those numbers, you can always right click and then you can add on minimum, max, count, all that stuff right there, right? Just right click on that little area. That's a nice little gift from the folks at Microsoft, right? So that's very cool. Now, last but not least, let's give you a quick little introduction to charts. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this data to have some kind of visual representation, right? So I'm going to make this into a chart. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all my data except for totals. I don't want that in there. And we're going to see that there is this insert menu right here. And then there's a whole section just for charts. Okay, now some of us, we don't know what to do. You might want to check out the recommended charts, really, because they're going to give you some suggestions. You click on that and they're like, hey, how about this one? How about that one? And even if you kind of really do know what you're doing, you might not have thought about visual ways to communicate these. So you can see they are giving you some suggestions based off of what your data is, right? Which is really kind of cool. Okay, but I'm now going to go and I'm going to go over to here to this insert column or bar chart. But just notice there's a lot of different chart options we can do. I'm going to click on my little drop down. And then I'm going to choose this guy right there, first choice, clustered column. And as soon as I click on that, you're going to notice that a new contextual tab and its friend now appear, chart design and chart format. And this is going to allow me to then really, really go crazy with whatever I want with this look and feel and also the data that's on there. So these chart styles are maybe the first place you'll go. And you can see as I hover over these, you're going to see they're giving me some presets of things I may like to explore. I'm going to keep the original. I kind of like it nice and simple. Okay. You'll also see that there are different groupings over here, the data group, the type group here, as well as the location group. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger so we can really see it. I'm going to cover up the original data and I'm going to switch the rows and columns, right? I'm going to essentially kind of transpose the data. My data currently has salespeople and it has months of the year. Well, what if I don't want to look at it as this kind of story? I can now switch the columns and rows and now notice that the months and the salespeople have switched places. Let's go ahead and just study that one more time. See, there's my months and I have my salespeople, right, comparing each other, or I have my salespeople and then each individual month for that salesperson. Really powerful and very easy to implement to be able to, again, tell your story in such a way. Okay. Select data is going to allow me to then say, hey, listen, you know what? Maybe we don't really want to look at May in this case. So I can then essentially say, you know what? Let's remove that from the data set, from the chart. So go over here to select data. And now it's very simple. It's kind of like a filter in a way. I can just go ahead and say no May. I click OK. And now notice it's only those 4 months. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. And let's remove, let's just say Capobianco. Click OK. And now notice it's just those 4 salespeople and those 4 months, right? So really slick, very easy to implement, okay? Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to show you this next part and kind of where to go for kind of changing your chart options. And that's going to be over here on the right-hand side, you have this little plus sign. Now, if you're on a Mac, you may not have that plus sign, not a problem. You can always go over to here to add chart elements. And we're going to see that there's a lot of different things that we can do here, right? Like if you wanted to have a title, right? For your axes, these are known as your axes here. You can go ahead and add on a title. Notice the little checkbox pops up. If you want to have, let's say, data labels, you can add on your data labels, right? Notice how now it's a lot easier to read with the labels. I can turn those on, turn those off. You can see there's another thing called a data table, which basically kind of integrates our spreadsheet that we started with into the chart itself. Again, notice data table, no data table, right? Totally up to you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off for now. And then the other one I want to show you here is the legend. Okay, the legend is this right here. See February, January, March, etc. If you maybe don't want that, you can turn that off. Or if you prefer to have it in a different location, you can say, hey, listen, I actually want this to be on the top, and go ahead and make that on the top. Okay, so really, really nice. All these options right here. And once again, if you don't like this little plus sign, or if you're on a Mac, you can always go ahead and go to add chart elements, and you have all the same choices all right here, just not as checkboxes. Okay, now let's say you wanted to make this a little bit bigger, and you also maybe wanted to change colors and formatting. So for example, this is not big enough for me, right? Or my clients, right? They really want to make this bigger, more prominent. So very simply, I can click on this right now and then go back to my home tab and then just bump it up with my little A right there. And now that's a lot more readable. Love that. Okay. And then finally, let's talk about changing the colors of these. I'll go over here to change colors back in my chart design. And now notice I have all these preset colors. Let's go ahead and do this little green and mustard color right there. Cool. And now notice how even my legend follows suit. And lastly, let's do a different type of chart. This time, let's do a pie chart. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all my data here. I'm going to go over here to insert, and I'll choose pie. And this time I'm going to choose 3D pie. And now I'll go ahead and maybe choose one of these preset formats. And you can see, ooh, look how cool that looks, right? 3D, kind of nice. Love that. That's really cool. Okay. And one of my favorite parts of working with the 3D is to be able to make my pie explode. So certainly we have a lot of these same options. Just select the data, change the chart type if you want to change it to a different type entirely. Moving the chart, we can move it absolutely to another sheet if you want to. Really nice, very easy, all these things. But now what I'm going to do is I want to make it so my pie explodes. And why might I want to do that? Well, I really want to stand out, right? So really, like, Curtis is the most important part of this story. So I want to make him explode so I can really elucidate that point. So watch what happens now. I'm going to click once on the pie chart and the whole chart gets selected. I click on Curtis again and notice only Curtis is now highlighted. And now very simply, I'm going to pull out on Curtis. And now I made something really beautiful, really striking, and really communicative to say, hey, everybody, look at Curtis. This is actually a very important part of it. And again, it helps with my storytelling. So very good. And without further ado, that concludes our lesson.
Well, congratulations everyone for completing this course. So hope you enjoyed this class, hope you learned a lot, and we look forward to seeing you in future lessons. Thanks everyone.
What was your favorite part of this tutorial? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Visit the Simon Says It channel, explore our videos and training sessions, and decide what you want to learn next.